Hello, everybody.
Hello, hello, hello.
All right. Yeah, so it took me a moment on Friday, or it took me a bit to figure out that I guess my system wasn't working quite as well as I'd hoped.
Ah,
Apparently, according to RJ, I was um, roboting a little bit, so I just at one point just went out and back in, and that seemed to fix it. So
yeah. And sometimes it's more you're roboting for whoever you're with on the panel, and you're not roboting for the audience. Sometimes you could be roboting for the audience, not the panel members. It's, unless somebody tells you that you're roboting to them, you don't know.
yeah. Well, Rick, how'd your day go today?
Pretty good. I went up starting yesterday until Wednesday. I've agreed to feed a friend of mine's cat while she's out of town. So I went over there, fed her cat, um, brought over a season, brought over, well, actually, the complete series of Reba that I recently bought. And I'm in the middle of watching season two. I'm binging it.
Well, Reba, and then the comedy that stars and was produced by Reba McIntyre.
Yeah. Actually, I'm not sure whether it's produced by her, but yeah, stars her. And I think she's involved somewhat directed in the higher ups. But I think I seen a well, maybe it was just created by a person named Allison something. So
Hmm.
I just happened to notice that. I'm not sure what she has to do with the production of it, but yeah, Reba, as in the country star Reba,
Yeah,
starring.
I figured that you were I remember. Well, I'd never watched the show myself, but
Oh,
I do know of it. So
yeah, I've watched it all the way through before, and I liked it. I actually had all the seasons at one time. But I lent somebody some seasons and I never got them back. So
hmm.
I was missing a couple seasons, two or three seasons. I'm not sure whether I got a couple of them back used, but I was at Walmart the other day
Yeah.
and I saw the whole series for 25 bucks Canadian. So I'm like, okay,
I,
whenever I get my,
I'm still listening, Rick. I'm just gonna go off camera here for a moment because I'm gonna go check a message
yeah,
real quick. It's a voice message, so but I'll be.
yeah,
I'm still listening.
yeah. So, I decided, when I get the ones that I have on the season, I can give them away to somebody, and I can just, now I have the full series, and it actually is going to take up less space on my shelf too. So, so that's cool. And I just figured I have it. I really like the series, and um, rewatching it, I liked it. I thought, Reba reminds me a little bit of my mom. Well, I know my mom liked the series too, so
Yeah. Well, one of the things I've been doing a bit this week, as a way as kind of a time killer kind of thing. So, I have a Fire Stick here for my TV, right? So I have
Amazon Fire
all
Stick,
those channels and stuff like that, like Direct TV and all that. So,
cool.
so one of the things I have is, I think back in 2017, I think there were 6 volumes of them where they came out with cartoon classics where they just put together like a random assortment of classic cartoons. So
Yeah,
I started back up again. This time, starting with volume 3. Um, I just got finished with volume 3 today and started volume 4. What I'll do is like particularly, when I'm like maybe if I'm getting ready in the morning or something like that, and I want something on, not necessarily my computer, but on my TV while I'm like
yeah,
getting ready stuff, I'll just turn that on for a few minutes, maybe watch a cartoon or two there. So
cool, cool. It sounds good for sure.
yeah. So, hmm.
So what do we have? Well, besides trying to figure out stuff to talk between us, and whoever might else come on the panel, what do you possibly have on tap for us tonight here?
Well, I'm still kind of deciding that there's like 2 or 3 stories that I was looking at as a possibility. It depends on who shows,
Uh,
who ends up showing up. If it's just you and me, it's like, there's a couple comic stories in Bleeding Fool that just came out. One kind of a follow up to something that I talked about a little bit the other day that was on. Actually, I don't know if you or Tim might have been one of the two who was on with me when I covered this when we were talking about, I guess, um, some stuff in regards to Tom King's run on Wonder Woman. This may be a little bit, a
yeah,
little
that was me. I remember.
okay, yeah. So that plus apparently some comic legends are getting into a comic, as it were, being put into a comic. So,
Cool.
and then there's
Well,
also an
hopefully,
anime. There's also an anime related story. Um, you know, um, now we could end up doing all 3 just because of how things might work out. But
yeah.
oh, the metal's here. Hey, oh, hey, metal. Yeah, I see you. All right. Well, that may. Hey, metal.
Don't ever pick up stories based on me. No guarantee I'll have anything to say about it. True.
Well, the one anime story that I saw tonight was, I guess, on Bounding into Comics. On Bounding into Comics, there was a story on there where I guess the one of the creators of Kill La Kill came out and spoke, I guess, in favor of fan service. One of the comments that they had put on there was that, yeah, if we made everything sterile, then people would lose their immunity to it, and and they would be weakened for it. So,
Yeah,
I guess we
well,
could do all. I guess we could do all 3 of those. I mean, I guess we could run. We could theoretically do all 3. If
and Metal might be more talking about the thing from last week or the week before, but that wasn't about just him. Where you wanted a bunch of us people on
Oh, I'm
to
just saying
talk.
in period in general.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that was going to be my next suggestion too.
yeah.
Well, I don't
Well,
think Mike usually does that.
yeah. Well, yeah. I get that, and I was hoping I could get you on, because particularly with the piracy part. But I know you even said you had some interesting things to say about about copyright issues as well. But I wanted to obviously have your input on it, if possible. I don't know if you caught any of the back and forth, like in particular between RJ and Elk and all that, but anyways, thanks for showing up this week.
Yeah, I mean, I did catch a lot of the back and forth, at least during the time that I was typing. After a certain point, though, I actually did have to dip out because I just couldn't take it anymore.
You
Because
couldn't take the
they were,
conversation, or
yeah, they were mostly talking past each other for the most part at near the end of it. So I think there was probably a few minutes left on your show or whatever, but I was just like, whatever, I'm gone.
Yeah.
oh yeah, well, you know, um, before we get into anything else, now I can understand if maybe right now because we're live, if you don't want to say anything now. But what I would like, I wouldn't mind hearing your overall,
Thoughts.
your overall impression, point of view of the topic, the discussion, what have you. I mean, if you would rather wait till after we close out the show, and
I mean,
we
it doesn't bother me either way. I thought the conversation overall was fairly good until near the end where it just started running in circles and they were talking past each other. At a certain point, it's like there was no point in having the conversation anymore.
Yeah.
yeah. Well, if you noticed, you might have picked up on the fact I was starting to pick up on that too.
Yeah.
In fact, I kind of just nipped it in the butt. Usually when it gets to that, see, for me, I like conversation like that until they get to the point where people get to the point where it goes from just simply expressing your point of view to trying to force everybody else to accept your point of view as the truth or fact. Trying to, people, sometimes you got to come to a point where you got to learn to agree to disagree.
Yeah, and sometimes people, I think, do that without meaning to. They're just trying to state their.
I know that, Rick. I know that. Yeah. I'm the same way. I've done it before. I've had to kind of check myself at times.
Yeah.
So, but if you notice too, in that, I also just sat there and let them talk. I didn't, unless it was, as a point of moderation to try to, bring somebody else into the conversation to try to get a different point of view or different track going or something. I usually I'd let them kind of I'd let RJ and Elk hash it out because, I figured that one of the reasons I wanted you in here too, Metal, is I figured you could counter some of Elk's points too, along with RJ. And speaking of Elk, all right, hey Elk.
Hi, sorry I'm late. We always have a sci-fi television afternoon with some friends at my place, and we were watching Dune, and it ran late today.
Cool.
All right. Well, we were just catching up on some stuff here, Elk. So, well, now that we got at least 4 people here, why don't we go ahead and do a bit of why don't we go through the intros real quick and let everybody introduce themselves, promote whatever projects or promote their channels, whatever projects they're doing if they are doing anything. We'll go clockwise this time. We'll start with Rick, go down to Mel and Elk, and then we'll get into more conversation. All right, Rick, you're up.
Okay, well, I'll just I'm putting up a link there for my YouTube channel. Just subscribe to my YouTube channel if you can, if you're watching. If you haven't already, watch a bunch of stuff. Try and get my watch hours up there. Even if you're not watching it, just put it on in the background, and let people know I'm there. Maybe so. Hopefully, I can get monetized sooner rather than later. Because I need that 3,000 watch hours, which is the hard part right now, of course. Because I got over 500, and then I'm close to 1,000 and subscribers. Want to get over that, of course, and then that I'll need over 4,000 watch hours. But anyways, maybe I'll shut up about that for now and pass it on to Metal.
All right, Metal, you're up.
Hi, I'm the Metal. I do stuff sometimes. I don't have any links ready to share right now, so I'm good.
Yeah, you sound like Messenger.
Well, you do have a channel, right?
Maybe.
You
I don't know. I might have several YouTube channels. Who's asking?
The guy in the top left-hand box.
And I am the Elk. I have no channels. I have nothing to shill. I have nothing to sell, at least not on YouTube. I try and I try, yet here I am. No links yet. Lifelong lover of genre fiction, though. So, yes, I have nothing to sell yet.
All right. So, with that, now with the intros out of the way, all right. So, anyways, I'm just trying to think. Shall we get into some articles, or shall we just do some more free talk here? I'm just trying to think real quick here. Well, speaking of genre talk, as Elk would put it, are there any cartoons, whether they be classic or modern, that you guys have been watching of late that you feel you want to talk about? Any cartoons, animation, cartoons or animes or anything like that you guys want to
Well,
actually, because Rick and I, of course, we looked over the history of Terry Tims the other day, so that was
yeah,
good.
that was
But
just over a week ago, and oh no, that was what,
that was
Wednesday.
Wednesday. That was this past
Yeah,
Wednesday.
yeah, and also I did. Well, I have been watching the X-Men '97. That's for the most part it's been pretty good. They ended. I think they've ended the season now with 10 episodes.
Yeah.
So it was pretty good. There was a couple for me cringe moments, but for the most part, I think they stayed true to the original. But there was a
Well,
couple minor things in my opinion.
well, yeah, since you brought that up, that you've been watching the X-Men '97, and I know a lot of people are saying it actually hasn't been as bad as So, and just a quick reminder to everybody, of course, if haven't already, you guys can like and share the stream, see if we can get some more friendly people to engage. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here we talk about grabs your attention, feel free to comment and/or ask questions. We'll try to answer the questions to the best of our ability. Speaking of questions,
Yeah,
of course, one of the things I wanted to talk, because it's kind of funny, the day after you were last on Thursday. Now, while there wasn't an indie comic showcase episode, um, the article wasn't up this week, so I'm guessing again slow news cycle is what
yeah. No, nobody put in
I
anything for.
guess that too. The thing I wanted to ask you about with the X-Men '96, because even though I didn't cover the ICS, as it were, there was a news article I went over in regards to X-Men '97. Apparently, former showrunner Bo DeMaio had come out and stated that there was, I guess, a scene in the
Yeah, there was a scene
final
where more.
episode where Morph confessed his quote unquote
Yeah,
romantic feelings for Wolverine.
yeah. Well, yeah. He morphs into Jean Grey and then says that he loves Wolverine. You know, and well, I guess not that it's really my cup of tea, obviously, but you know, Morph is a character. You said it, he's based on a character called Changeling, but he was originally made for X-Men '97 just by itself. So that making him a new character, and although technically where it's put, you you could see I couldn't you could or couldn't see them doing that. Like if this was actually running in '97, when did they put that in? I doubt it, but you know,
And based on my understanding of Wolverine as a character, I don't really think he would have played that way to begin with.
well, yeah, that's possible in itself. And as Elk sort of pointed out in the comments of that day, about in the comics they did do Gene, him, and Scott having a three-way, but not that Wolverine would normally be this way, but you know, he might have just been simping enough for Jean Grey that he would go along with it. Same with Scott, but that's again my opinion.
I actually thought it was well done for an episode like that, because the first time I watched it, I have to admit, when I watch most genre fiction, I'm doing something else, like I'm actually working while I have it running in the background. But I did pay a lot of attention, or as much attention as I could, to the X-Men '97 series, and it went over my head. And I usually pick up on gay coding, to be honest, but I thought it was kind of goofy, and it was the kind of thing that it definitely like wasn't in your face or wasn't waving it around. It was
Yeah,
simply just something that, again, probably most 14-year-olds and under wouldn't even notice. It just it seemed to be a weird part of the story, and you and again, it
yeah,
wasn't like beating you over the head with it. And it was also
yeah,
something that some gay guy with a crush on another guy would probably do, is if he was shy about it. Like he wouldn't, run up and scream, "I'm queer and I'm here," like that Bambi metal woman in the Euro song. or Eurovision Song Contest. I thought it was actually well done.
Yeah, well, that I can agree with too. And unfortunately, it is like a lot of stuff that that this stuff is in these little things or whatever that a lot of people make it without having really seen it. They make out the whole thing like it's going to be a lot worse than what it is. But when you go and watch it, it's not even half as bad or a tenth as bad. Maybe I've been desensitized or whatever, although, like I said, in my opinion, I'm not really for it. And I think most people know that. But, at the same time, it's the mainstream. What do you expect?
Yeah, like I think a lot of the objection, not all of it, but I think most of it is the idea that these sort of identity politics is used as a mean to demean and berate and claim that certain identities are better than other identities, with white males being basically at the bottom of this like identity pile. And I
Yeah.
don't think that show did it. It did portray something that wasn't a
Yeah.
straight white male, but it wasn't in a way that berated or belittled or demeaned anyone
Yeah.
else.
Unlike Velma, right? Unlike Velma.
Yeah, I haven't watched Velma myself.
I watched
But
clips of it,
we
and yeah,
are because we were
about
we were
unless
covering the
you
news of it quite a bit where, as to Elk's point there, where they were basically trying in Velma, they were trying to make it seem like the whites were the bottom of the barrel, as it were, or the scum of the
Yeah.
earth.
Another thing I'd say too about the X-Men '97 episode, Wolverine is unconscious at the time this is happening, so he can't even reply one way or another. So Wolverine might not even end up being conscious that was even ever said to him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, that's right, because that was part of the scene too. But
yeah, so it's like Worf confesses it, but in a sense, it could just mean nothing, too, because it's an unconscious person, in a coma, or seemingly in a coma, or something like that. So it's like, would it go anywhere? I guess they could bring it back up, where Wolverine did hear it, but it could just go nowhere. Now, of course, we've heard that they're supposed to ramp it up for season 2, that stuff, but it's hard to say.
Well, let's see. The three of us have been talking about a lot of this. Metal. I know you've been busy with a lot of other things and stuff, but have you actually had a chance to catch any cartoons
I've told you
or
before.
animes that
Well, specifically with this one, I have absolutely no interest in '97. Specifically with that one, and I've even told you before why. It's because I didn't like the last season half of the original cartoon, so I have no interest in hopping into the new one. But as of other things, I mean, for the most part, I don't know. I haven't been really watching Western cartoons in a long time. Unless
not
it's
even
like an
older
indie.
one.
I watch. No, because I don't have TV on, right? So if I'm busy, the only reason I'm watching something is because I need to catch up on something, right? Especially if I'm going to talk about it on the Monday show, right?
On the
Which is
Vomitorium?
mostly just new stuff. Yeah, the Super Serial Showtime. So I really haven't been watching a lot of old stuff, aside from which middle-aged, I guess at this point. I've been watching Ranma again in my server, but that's nothing to talk about. Indie cartoons though, like I'll occasionally watch some like independent stuff, YouTube, Newgrounds, and things like that. I know the Amazing Digital Circus put out its second episode within like the last week or so. So that was something that was interesting to watch. But I mean, aside from that, no, it's just mostly just anime.
Yeah, but basically, like you're not watching like the Toonami block on Saturday night at all, or anything?
No, I mean I don't really watch TV like at all. Like I don't even have a TV plugged in or anything. I watch things on my computer if I watch anything at all.
Oh, okay. So in some ways, kind of like sometimes what I do along with the TV, like you might go to specific sites and just kind of build your own little block of shows to watch, and then you'll just watch them on whatever site you choose to.
Yes, I believe I have mentioned before I am an unabashed pirate.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, yeah. I know that. You and I have talked about some specific sites too, but not that we want to do that during the live show, mind you, but
I do have something that I've been watching lately for the past off and on for a month or so. That's great. It's a YouTube channel. I'm not sure if I just look up a YouTube video and then click the URL bar, is that a link to the actual channel that I'm watching or that I pulled up on YouTube, or is there another way to
It,
get about it?
it should be if you bring up the channel on YouTube and just copy what's in the address bar. Yeah.
All right, yeah, it's this guy, Dan Monroe. It's movies, music, monsters. The part I really liked are the movies and the monsters, which is most of what he does, although he does a bit of music. And he's starting off at least with 60s and 70s, mainly sci-fi TV shows. And he's a guy after my own heart. He talks about goofy stuff like the Clash of the Titans and the Lost in Space and Galactica and Planet of the Apes. And what else does he have here? Oh, he also has something that I'm kind of obsessed over and that is movie props. I can't say I have a legitimate collection, but I sure wish I had. And I had some like aftermarket stuff. But he does stuff like what happened to such and such a prop from such and such a 60s and 70s TV show. Like what happened to the bomb from Beneath the Planet of the Apes and that sort of stuff. And what's the story behind Charlton Heston's Omega Man? And what happened to the spaceship Jupiter 2 from Lost in Space? It's just, they're great videos. They're probably about 15 minutes long, it looks like. His channel is only about 2 or 3 months old, and he's already got like 70 to 90,000. Oh, okay, he passed the 70,000 mark. Now he's up to like 92,000 subscribers, and he's only got 145 videos. Like he's just,
wow. Cool.
They're really a lot of fun, and I think people who like the content in this show would like the content in his show. Again, it's mostly sci-fi, but a little bit of horror and a little bit of there's even just one or two detective fiction, like Kolchak from the 60s or 70s, which was a detective show that took off. Although I think it had a bit of a supernatural element too, Kolchak. I think he was a priest or something like that. But it was, I think people who like the content from Mike's show would probably like Dan Monroe's movie, music, and monsters. And they're only 15 minutes long, so it's not like you're settling in for like a 3-hour event or anything. And I'd encourage people to check them out. They might like it.
all right.
Cool.
Well, one of the things I'm kind of hoping it will actually end up on my TV, but I'm not sure because of how things are working out. But MeTV recently made an announcement that they're adding the MeTV Tunes channel to their lineup. Now, I don't know if it will be on DirecTV as much, but it's supposed to be kind of like another, just with back to what Boomerang used to be, where it was just exclusively classic stuff, and not just part classic and part kind of toss the older Cartoon Network stuff. But MeTV Tunes is set to I guess premiere June 25th, and it'll be basically having like a lot of the content plus a little bit more of what they've been showing on their like Tune In With Me programming and Sunday Night Cartoon, like a lot of Warner Brothers catalog, a lot of the Paramount catalog, which would include like the Fleischer and Famous Studios, Popeye, Betty Boop, and and like the Superman of the early 40s. But also, from what I understand too, they might be doing some of the Harvey Toon stuff too, and they'll probably be showing some more. Aside from like they're already showing the Flintstones and the Jetsons from Hanna-Barbera, but it looks like they'll be adding more of the Hanna-Barbera content to their channel too. Apparently, they've made some kind of deal with the Warner Brothers Discovery to where they can bring all these shows over to MeTV now, and some people are already calling it the Boomerang Killer.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping they'll have it on, but
Cool.
All right. So, anyways,
we're about half an hour in. Maybe we might want to hit an article.
Yeah, I'm thinking that too. I think we'll try to see if we can hit all three of the art because we have I think a mix of people here that can appreciate all three of the articles I kind of saw here. Let me go over to Bleeding Fool because first two articles kind of predate the third one here. So the first two are going to be comic related articles. So
Oh, well, he's doing that. I'm going to say thanks to Metal again for helping me get Canadian Shield 2 and Snowdrift 1, re-edit it. And looking at them to check out that the words look good in the bubbles with their a lot of them having a lot of extra spacing.
There was a few weirdly placed dialogue, or the dialogue within the bubbles.
Yeah. I think I've corrected most of them. Well, I've corrected the ones that you said about for sure.
And Elk, I'm sure you'll have some things to say because this article is written by Avi Green again.
Oh God, that guy! I probably share most of his political views, but gosh, I think he's dumb in the way he expresses them. But yeah, that's just my attitude. So yeah.
Okay. Well, anyways,
Dumb.
Tom King's overwrought, rebellious Wonder Woman is nothing new. Article by Avi Green, published May 17, 2024. And Rick and I recently did kind of an article related to this as well, where I guess there was a DC artist who said they were now going to basically boycott DC because of Tom King's writing of Wonder Woman, of Tom King's anti-Christian viewpoint of Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
But anyways, let's get into this article, then see what he has to say here. Newsrama interviewed the terrible Tom King about his current work on Wonder Woman. Now, Tom King is somebody who many on the right, are not thrilled with, as it were.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Well, I must say, he really lets his bias known about what he thinks about Tom King right away.
Yeah. Another title DC's editorial tragically gave him the keys to after all the poor exploitation he performed on many other creations of theirs. Predictably, the interviewer gushes and gushes galore, beginning with the following. So that's Avi, and now we're getting into the article that Avi is referencing here. Wonder Woman relaunched last year with a new number one. And that's, I know, something that a lot of people have been kind of like all these constant reboots among a lot of these comics that a lot of people are not happy about as well.
Well, they keep messing them up more and more, and and this is this. I don't think it's a reboot. It's just a relaunch. In other words, the last Wonder Woman title failed for whatever reason, and now they've decided to try and launch it again. and it's not a reboot. It's just they're starting to do stories.
Relaunch, yeah, you're right. Relaunch is probably the more correct term. Under the all-new creative team of writer Tom King and artist Daniel Sampier, to say it has proved to be a bold new start for the amazing Amazon is an understatement. And of course, as always, guys, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions. We'll try to answer the questions best of our ability. The series kicks off with a woman, soon revealed to be one of the Amazons, protecting herself against a gang of violent bigots. This act of self-defense quickly sparks a political crisis, which has seen tensions between the United States and Themyscira escalate to a disastrous degree. Meanwhile, a new villain, the ultra-traditionalist Sovereign, intends to bend Wonder Woman to his will. So, Rick, it looks like we're getting a little bit more background on what this book was all about. Because one of the big complaints made about, I guess, about the writer on this is that the anti-Christian feel to it, and let's see. So, and then Avi speaking here. What's really atrocious about this run is that it's a left-wing metaphor for opposition to illegal immigration, with the most stupefying part being the Amazons and Themyscira are used as stand-ins for the illegal aliens, or worse, for Islamic countries. But that's pretty much how leftism seems to work these days.
Okay, so obviously, like they said, they're using them as a stand-in. The question, obviously, maybe it'll get into it, maybe it won't, is why do even the Themyscirians need to come and immigrate to America or wherever? You know, that would be my biggest question.
That's a good point too, because Themyscira. I mean, if you think about it,
And the other question is, why would any of them want to?
right? Why? Not just a need, but why would they want to when they basically remember when it later became known as Themyscira, but originally in the Golden Age it was called Paradise Island.
Yeah.
The women were given immortality, incredible strength, power, beauty.
Yeah. Well, besides all that,
endless amount. I mean,
yeah, but
they were not wanted. There was no need to emigrate.
Yeah, but see, I'm even talking beyond all that. That is great. That's dandy. And that's probably even a plus reason not to immigrate. But their whole philosophy is about no men. Well, if you immigrate to a country where there's no men, why? And they hold the
or if we take the leftist perspective, why would the women want to immigrate to a quote unquote patriarchal society?
Yeah, when they're matriarchal.
Yeah, and again, they have immortality, so it's not like they have the biological drive. They have the biological need or drive to procreate, because as long as they stay on the island,
yeah,
they live forever.
Yeah.
So
they existed there for thousands of years. Well, they might have the biological urge; it might be built into them. They just learn to ignore it. But they are been in contact with man's world now for a while, so maybe something's happened there, I guess. But at that point, why not let men immigrate to Paradise Island?
Well, I remember in the Golden Age stories, and I don't know if it was also transferred over to the Silver Age as well, but apparently if a man were to set foot on the island, they could theoretically lose their powers.
Yeah, but we've seen men go on there several times. Obviously, there's the big one, Steve Trevor, got on there. and nothing happened to them. I think
Yeah.
Nazis have been on there. Superman and Batman have been on there. Several members of the Justice League. I'm sure several villains have been on there. Male villains, of course. I'm talking about.
Mhm.
So but that's a little bit off. I guess so it's off topic, but on topic for
Yeah.
the article. So
One thing
Well,
that's kind of on topic, kind of off topic. Oh, one thing I always found interesting was this idea where you put evil people as bigots. And I thought that was something that in the 80s was kind of more mixed, and in the 90s it was a bit more nuanced, although I still think it was like a dangerous and bad idea. And that is, I know in some mafia movies, a way to make the mafia seem more sympathetic was they'd have the mafia guy be politically correct, and then maybe they'd imply that the straight guy or the cops or something were racist. And I know I think it was a Bronx Tale where Robert De Niro's character, where this kid is sort of oscillates between following his father and following a mobster and has to decide whose values he follows. And one of the things that was sort of argued in favor of the mobster character was that he wasn't a bigot because he associated with black mobsters in criminal rackets. And I used to think that was actually such a dangerous thing. Again, for like a white middle class audience, that would not be much of a challenge to our values. But I think what it would be like to actually grow up in a poor area of a city when your values maybe are more up for grabs and aren't sort of assumed and impressed upon you by the rest of the community, where you had this idea that people who are racist, and it's the system, quote unquote, that's racist, meaning cops most of the time, at least is portrayed on the news.
Oh, yeah, the systemic racism.
Yeah, and that cops are portrayed as racist, and that, and I know there was one other movie where they said that some numbers racket run in Harlem, like a criminal gambling ring run in the 50s or 60s. It was actually defended, I think, in the voice of the author of the auteur of the movie, as well as in a character, said something like it generated hundreds of thousands of dollars a week to black businesses in Harlem. And I'm thinking, you're not thinking something through if you're defending criminal gangster rackets as being good for the economy. And if, yeah, in a Bronx Tale, it's where that kid ended up going to jail for killing a cop, of all things, but it's in real life, but it's in a Bronx Tale where the kid's oscillating between his father, and his father says something racist like, don't marry a black, don't fall in love with a black girl, or don't bring a black girl home. And then the mobster, I think it's Robert De Niro in that one, says, hey, no, you got to follow your heart. If you fall in love with a black woman, you do. And that's supposed to be an argument in favor of the mafia.
Yeah.
Like there's an equivalent.
It's funny how you talk about Robert De Niro, because he's been making some news of late, with some of his, I guess, commentary on Trump recently. I don't know if you guys have seen some of the headlines on that. Where he basically believes that Trump's slogan should be, I want to bleep America.
To be honest, anyway, I stay out of Trump as much as I can. It's just, it's too much.
Yeah.
Well, I wasn't looking to open up that discussion too much. I was just mentioning that because you were talking about Robert De Niro. Metal, we haven't heard from you too much thus far. Was there anything? Did you want to add anything to the discussion here?
No.
Just a simple no, huh? All right. Well, we'll continue on with the article here then. Let's see. So, and I guess now getting into the interview, as it were. All right.
Back to the article.
Yeah.
Well, the article I was just saying oh, sorry. I was just saying the news article that Abby's referring to. No, shut up.
Right. Okay. Newsrama. Tom. We're here primarily to talk about Wonder Woman #9, which is a really interesting and different sort of issue. Which what can you tease about it? Tom King. The latest arc, in smaller quotes, Sacrifice, is basically the 3 trials of Wonder Woman as the Sovereign tries to break her in 3 different ways. So I guess one of the comparisons that was made to this particular story was like, they were drawing comparisons to the temptations of Christ when Satan.
Well, with Wonder Woman, hearing the 3 trials of, or I think more of Hercules. For him, it was 12, but I think it was 12. Metal? How many? You probably know.
Yes, it was 12 labors.
Yeah.
One of them was actually getting the girdle of the Queen of the Amazons.
Anyway, so Sovereign tried to break her in 3 different ways. In the first issue, number 8, he tried to break her using the rope, trying to get her to believe these things about herself that aren't true. And then with the issue, he tries another method, which is isolation. Wonder Woman is a social creature. She's not a loner like Clark and Bruce. And Sovereign takes.
Clark is not a loner, and even Bruce isn't really a loner.
Well, I guess that's why the key. What was one of the lines earlier? Believe all these things about her that aren't true. Again, as I remember from the article you and I covered, Rick, they talked about how they drew kind of a comparison to, the temptations of Christ and Satan trying to tempt Christ.
But here, Tom King is saying that, she's a social creature. She's not a loner like Clark and Bruce. Well, that just shows that he knows nothing about Clark and Bruce, in my opinion. Because they aren't loners, really, when you get into them, if you look at them. Clark works at the Daily Planet. Right. He'll work with other heroes very easily. He's got a
now Bruce, Batman, in a way, he is kind of a loner to a certain extent, but not maybe to the extent that Tom King wants everybody to believe.
Yeah, well, at first glance, normally you think that. Yes, I can see that. But again, he's got Alfred, or in the past, he's had Alfred. I'm not sure whether Alfred's alive or dead. I heard they killed him off. But then he's got all the different Robins, Batgirl, a whole slew of different characters that he's brought in. Either he's brought into or has been forced into his, shall we say, circle. So he has all these allies that he's aligned himself with, some closer than others, of course, but they're there. So even
he's still probably of the 3 in the Trinity, he's probably the most. I'd say he's probably considered the most skeptical of the 3.
Oh yeah, for sure. But he's not as much of a loner as most people are led to believe.
All right. And Sovereign takes all of that away from her, so she has to find a way to fight and endure that.
So basically, he's taking her to prison and putting her, in isolation. Somebody would be put in isolation in prison.
Well, yeah, and when Rick and I were covering the previous article, when they were talking about this too, about that one former DC writer who was going to boycott because of the anti-Christian propaganda that Tom King was promoting in the book there. Rick was bringing up a very interesting point. Well, first off, the Amazons don't believe in the Christian God to begin with, so why would this even be a thing? Now, granted, the point I made to him was, well, it's not really about the story; it's about the message to the reader. It's basically trying to get to the reader. That's and we had Rick and I had a pretty lively discussion about pretty active discussion about it. When we were going over the previous article.
I actually had a comment on that, and that is I believe that is more of a late Christian error than is actually accurate. And the idea that Greeks, at the time the Greek pantheon was believed, say from the 1st century to the 3rd or 4th or 5th century, Greeks, most of them would have believed that the Christian God Yahweh existed. They would just not believe he was the only God or that he was the God that they should worship.
Because that's how most of the older faiths were.
Yeah, that is a monotheistic, because we've now lived through several centuries of monotheism. Christians now have this idea that, oh, because I'm a monotheist and I don't believe in other pantheons gods, therefore people who believed in pantheons of other gods didn't believe in me. Whereas that's not even true for 1st through 4th century Christians. Most 1st through 4th century Roman Christians would have believed that other pantheons, like now we see Baal as a manifestation of the devil or so on. Even to the Jews that wrote that, at the time it was writing, Baal was the god of the Canaanites, and he was a real god with power, just like the gods of the Pharaoh. When Moses threw his staff to the ground, his magicians came along and threw other staves, and they turned into snakes as well. So,
in Exodus, it literally says that
Let's let Metal speak here.
Well, I'm just reinforcing what he's saying. In the Exodus, it literally says that the Elohim of the Hebrews went to war with the Elohim of the Egyptians.
Yeah.
Right? So literally God was going to war with the other gods, and that's how they viewed it.
Yeah.
What I was going to viewed gods is they wouldn't have not believed that Yahweh was a god. He would have been up there in. Is it Henoism or Henoism, where you believe that one particular god is the most powerful god, but other gods exist, which is basically what Christianity is, because they morphed away all the other divine beings. And they're divine beings, they're godlike. It's just we call them angels, or they're divine beings, but we call them manifestations of Satan. So that's something that monotheism has achieved in the last 1,200 years. It's not something it achieved in the first 500 years it existed, when the Greek pantheon would have been believed by large numbers of people.
I'll take a break because I think Rick wanted to.
I was just going to say, in my statement about that, I'm not saying that she wouldn't know about or believe that the Christian gods or the Roman gods or the Buddhist gods were quote unquote real to a degree, but she would follow the Greek gods. So, the fact that the Christian God is, trying to torture her about or with the Christian God, it would mean nothing to her. Just like, if you tried to torture me about or with, the Greek gods, it would mean nothing. Or use the Greek scriptures or whatever. Again, it would mean nothing to me, right? Yeah, sure, I believe they existed in some fashion, maybe not quite the way that they believe. And then I think Wonder Woman would have existed, well, I'm not sure whether but the Amazons would have existed before Christendom came into existence on Paradise Island.
Another thing you have to look at is in their world, right? Yes, we have our beliefs about individual things existing or not, but in their world, their fictional world, every single god exists in a very literal way, and the gods are all aware of each other on some degree, right? I don't really think you could torture her specifically about things revolving Judaism and Christianity, but they exist in a more visceral way to somebody like Wonder Woman than they would to people living in our real world.
Yeah, I could agree with that for sure. It's just like I said, I don't think torturing her or quoting Christian scriptures to her or how she's behaved.
Yeah, no, it wouldn't do anything.
But this is what I come back to on the whole thing. Okay, this is Tom King we're talking about. Okay.
Yeah.
So I think the point was it wasn't really about the story. I know, Rick, you said it doesn't make sense because why, it wouldn't make sense for her to be tortured by another pantheon's god, as it were, but that's not even really the point. If anything, what the brass tacks here is what Tom King's trying to do, okay, with the story, with Wonder Woman, is he's trying to vilify white Christian males. Okay, that's his ultimate goal. It's to cast basically anything that is considered traditionally American as evil.
Yeah, but that's a part of my point too, Mike. In doing this story the way that he's doing it, he negates his point by doing it to Wonder Woman. If he was doing it to Superman, yeah, but because she doesn't believe in this God, like to follow him, quoting Christian scriptures to her means nothing to her. So it's like he's being a bad writer at this point.
Yeah. Metal, what do you think about the exchange that Rick and I are having right here?
I think you're talking about two completely different things.
Yeah.
When I
think
Metal,
the aspect of what we're seeing, what he's trying to portray in the story there. But anyways, let's get.
I would agree that Tom King is a bad writer, though. That's something I can agree with all around.
I think we all can agree on that.
Not that he couldn't be a good writer, he just always chooses not to.
Well, I think
I'm just saying, if you wanted to get,
message is more important than the story.
Yeah, if he wanted to do this, it would just be better if he did it with a different character than Wonder Woman. Even Batman, I think, would be better.
I don't think politically it would be better, though, and that's the problem.
Yeah.
Right? Because, again, I do agree with Mike here. If we strip the context of DC, which is what Tom King often does anyway, because he just ignores the entire history of what happened in DC. If we strip the context, the Christian faith is seen as a heavily patriarchal faith, and Wonder Woman is the matriarch, basically, symbolically speaking, right?
Yeah.
Like this is what he's trying to come to, and it's probably what King is trying to come to as well. So I agree with that. If we're only looking at it symbolically, there isn't a better person to pick. Because he's just going to ignore all of whatever's happened in DC anyway. There isn't a good person for what he's trying to do. Also, because the type of writing that he's trying to do doesn't belong in DC at all to begin with, but no. I get what you're trying to lay down.
Yeah, I definitely get what Mike is saying, basically, for sure. It's just, I guess I'm thinking as story-wise or whatever. Yeah, I can, I get that, he might be trying to do all this nasty, evil stuff, however you want to say it.
Well, yeah, I think Metal is right in that we're seeing it from two different angles. We're seeing two different things about it, But anyways, why don't we get back to the article?
Yeah.
Let's see. Where all right. So let me just double check something here.
We got through the other stuff.
Yeah, I know, but I'm just trying to see. Okay, so we're back to Avi again here. We're back to Avi. Trying to figure out where Avi are in the article still. So we're back to Avi. Okay. This is quite honestly a groaner. He makes it sound like Superman and Batman have literally no social life, even though, and this is the point you were making, Rick.
Yeah.
Even though Clark Kent spent plenty of time in past decades with ladies like Lois Lane, to say nothing of Lana Lang and even the mermaid Lori Lamaris. While Bruce Wayne had affairs with women like Silver St. Clown, Vicky Vale, and even Catwoman. And have we all not forgotten Julie Madison? believe it was Ernie.
Well, obviously for both of them, he's just naming a few because they've had a lot more.
Yeah.
Both of them have
Right.
a lot more love interest than that, and especially Bruce Wayne.
Yeah. It can certainly be said Superman's far more open and social, sans the glasses, than Batman is under the cowl. All King's made clear is that despite his claims to the contrary, he hasn't a clue how any of the older superhero creations were written in the past, nor does he care. Now,
Yeah, I can agree with that.
Can I get a consensus on that? Would you guys agree with that last part of that statement?
For sure.
That
Which makes him
neither knows nor cares about how the characters were written in the past.
Which makes him the bad writer.
He has no clue about how he's even written the same characters like more than a few years ago.
Yeah, I don't think he even cares about his own writing being internally consistent. He doesn't have a vision or anything, or even I don't even think he has much of an axe to grind. He just grinds the axe of the day in his books, whatever the newspaper, whatever the last
going to get hype points.
Yeah, whatever the New York Times said in the last 6 months, that's what he's going to write about, even if it contradicts what it wrote 18 months ago.
So virtual signaling.
Definitely agree. Yeah, definitely agree with that. He's just trying to get points, attention points from people. That's it. That's all it is.
All right. So now we're going back to the article here. So you mentioned Sovereign a minute ago, and he's proving to be a really interesting villain. Where did he come from?
Actually,
go ahead, Rick.
Just from the little bit that we've read of him or been told about him, he doesn't seem like an interesting villain. The villain's been done like 100 times before.
Kind of an omnipotent figure abusing his power.
Well, no, just somebody. I'm not sure whether this guy's omnipotent because he's supposed to be from what I get, a representative for quote unquote God, but he's misusing scripture like left, right, and center and all that, trying to twist it to his thing. He's cultish, really, for lack of a better way of saying it. From the little bit that we've seen of him. So, and that's been done so many times before as a villain, especially a villain misrepresenting Christianity.
I was looking for what makes Diana different than Clark and Bruce. When people describe Wonder Woman, all of the adjectives they use could also describe Superman and Batman. She never gives up. She's good. She loves her friends. So what differentiates her? I think the fact that it's difficult to come up with that is one of the reasons Wonder Woman is both hard to write and it's sometimes been hard for the audience to kind of grip onto her.
What's different about it?
I would not agree with that at all. I mean, I think.
Yeah. What's different about her? The main thing is she's a warrior, a woman warrior from a race, from a ethnic group, however you want to say it, of women warriors. She was raised just strictly among women. I think that's pretty different in of itself, and a huge difference. Maybe they have a lot of the same values, and that's what I think he sort of some things that it was saying more her values rather than who you value, what your values are part of who you are, but there's more to who you are than just your values sometimes, your upbringing and all that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so now this is Tom King speaking in the article. What differentiated her to me in thinking about it was Batman enforces the law. His best friend is literally the police commissioner. And they have the exclamation point there. And Superman, you can say so many things about Superman, but there's something wholesome and conformist about him. There's something in him, that status quo, in a good way, in a way I kind of love. He wants the wholesome Kansas vision of his parents to be spread out. It's one of love and empathy, but it's not about keeping things the same. Wonder Woman, she's the rebel. That's not what she wants. She wants change. She wants to go against the system, as opposed to enforcing and reinforcing it. And that's where I was like, quote, I need Wonder Woman to be a rebel. I need her to be against the systems that are in place, unquote, in place now, unquote. And
Sorry, I wouldn't think. I don't think she's a rebel, really. Not that I think that would go against who she is to go against uh, the things in place. Well, in some ways, I can see it because of how she got off Paradise Island, at least the traditional way in her story. But at some times, she was supposed to be an ambassador to ways of man.
yeah,
To so she's supposed to represent her culture.
well, yeah.
But
When you go back to Wonder Woman's origin, right? When she was originally sent out to the world from Paradise Island, she was sent out to be an ambassador of love. Okay,
yeah,
you know, the whole, it wasn't about beating somebody over the head with a billy club. Okay, it was, in fact, now granted, and a lot of people go into this with the whole bondage, the bondage,
yeah,
bondage fetishism bit of it too. The whole idea of loving submission, loving submission is what they were trying to go
yeah,
for originally, and what it wasn't about going up and, okay, if a guy was a rude to a woman, smack the what out of it.
yeah.
Okay,
Also,
it was
she's supposed to be
more
about. Sorry, go ahead.
it was more about the idea of showing them, hey, look, you shouldn't have done that. There are better ways of, being more, more peaceful about, not like beating them over the head or trying to punish them or make them feel like they were bad. It's like,
I was going to say she's supposed to be all about quote unquote truth. The belt of truth, right? Or not the belt of truth, the lasso of truth.
right.
And it's and it's and just revealing the inner part. Sort of revealing sometimes truth to yourself, because sometimes you're not even willing to reveal the truth to yourself or others. That's what it, in a lot of ways, what she was about. The guy that created or invented, the
The
lie
lie
detector.
detector, yeah, William Moulton Marston's.
Yeah. Metal. Any thoughts? Would you say that she's a rebel or elf? Any thoughts on that?
I
You get
think it very much depends what era of Wonder Woman you're talking about, right? Especially as they started to reformat her to be more Greek, because the original Wonder Woman was barely Greek with like her interactions and her villains and stuff like that. It's just that's the where she comes from. But as they start like reformatting her over the years, as she becomes more Greek, she has at times rebelled against the gods. She has at times rebelled against different states, but I mean like nation states. She's even sometimes rebelled against her own friends because she disagreed with it. So whether she is or not really depends on what era of Wonder Woman you're talking about.
Oh, yeah. Well, when she was originally created, in fact, she wasn't actually part. It wasn't the Greek pantheon she was a part of. It was actually the Roman pantheon she was a part of. It wasn't
yeah.
Zeus and Hera that were her, that were the leaders of her. It was Jupiter and Juno.
Wouldn't it be Diana?
No,
Jupiter and Diana?
no, no, no. No. Juno is Hera's counterpart in Rome.
Oh,
But actually would be pronounced Juno
Huh.
and Jupiter.
you know what? Yeah, even I was second guessing myself saying about the rebel, but I don't think, at least the way that he's saying it here, I don't think the rebel in the way that he's saying it here necessarily. That
I
he
have
needs her
one
to
thing.
be.
May seem a bit deep in the weeds, but I actually think that Tom King's use of the word sort of rebel or non-rebel is actually rooted in a complete misunderstanding of where classic storytelling was grounded, and it wasn't grounded in contemporary American values. It was grounded in Greek heroism, and the idea that a hero could legitimately use violence and should legitimately use violence by giving to each person his due, that each person as an individual was entitled to justice, and a hero would use violence to deliver justice unto each person as is their due. So sometimes, unlike now, when the state is the only legitimate holder and user of violence that we see, and therefore to punish someone who the state upholds or to punish someone who's acting on behalf of the state appears like a rebel to us and to most North Americans. To in classic storytelling, like Superman as a Greek hero, no, if the United States senator was being unjust, he would use violence to rectify that, and he would punish that senator. If a cop was being unjust in his use of violence, as a hero, Superman and Wonder Woman would use violence against a cop, just as they would a corrupt Wall Street banker or a thug that was stealing a TV from somebody's house. So there's this Greek idea of what a hero is and what legitimates the use of violence. And that is not derived from the state. It's derived from your spirit or from the gods or from the sacred.
Yeah, it comes from the nature of the universe itself, right? If you actually have a belief that there are higher powers above the legitimacy of any nation, especially since most of them are supposed to get their legitimacy from these higher powers, and if they're doing things wrong, then obviously they're not representing those powers, then it does come down to an individual to basically reset the balance of the scales.
Yes, exactly.
Let me just
of rebelling against the United States or not. That's it's a totally different kind of rebellion. That's more 19th century nationalistic, where most of our culture comes from now is from the 19th century, in my humble historian's opinion. But yeah, so I think that's a fundamentally misunderstanding of storytelling, in that most of it's rooted in Greek classical storytelling, with a totally different set of when and where something's rebelling. So Superman or Wonder Woman, like beating up a corrupt senator or a corrupt defense contractor, wouldn't be seen as unheroic. She'd be seen as heroic and not as a rebel, but as someone following the true virtues of justice and the will of the gods to one extent or another.
Okay, so I'm going to make one little quick point, then I want to just say so yeah, much like what we saw in a lot of Golden Age stories, where how and we've talked about this with like characters like Superman and Namor and all that, when they're like dispensing out what they believe is justice. And Rick, you and I have had several conversations about Namor on this matter, and what they were just talking about was in a lot of that. But before we and as we get back to the article here, let me just get this in. So hello, Balit King. He's a QC First Nations.
So I think that's QC. I think is referring to Quebec. I could be wrong.
Okay.
From Canada.
All right.
And what about Quebec First Nations? Anyways, on with the thing here. I think we're at in place now, and stealing.
Yeah, it's an hour 13 already. We're an hour 13 into it, but just go to show you that a pretty lively. So maybe we won't get through. Maybe we'll barely get through this one, but because this one's been a lively discussion here we've been having. But, anyways, let's get back if I can. Okay, so and stealing from Stan Lee's folk, the greatest thing to rebel against sometimes is the United States. And that's sort of where sovereign came from, and the idea that there's this secret king of America who subscribes to a very backwards view of how women should be and how his empire should be and how power should be restricted to one man and one family, and having her say, quote, "No, there is another way," That's where sovereign comes from.
Okay.
So
A little
now,
wacky in my opinion.
oh, go ahead, Rick.
Oh, I'm just saying, a little wacky in my opinion. That idea for the
Well,
sovereign.
I think we're about to hit Avi's response to what Tom King just said here. So, anyways, he may not actually say it, but I've got a bad feeling the sovereign is a metaphor for surprise, surprise, Donald Trump. For now, this is hopelessly silly how King makes it sound like Wonder Woman shouldn't enforce the law like Batman and Robin do, and rebelling against the USA. And rebelling against the USA? Seriously, that's just so cheap, and it's not hard to guess King must believe the best values of the USA are so worthless they have to be quote unquote rebelled against, which translates to more like opposed. What's so wrong with the USA that it isn't so wrong with how Iran is being run, for example?
Well, I think that this even kind of goes back to something Elk was saying. Even in earlier American storytelling, which has some parallels and overlaps to older hero myths, there was a higher order, right? Whether it was the fact that the nation was developed as a Judeo-Christian nation, but like the actual principles and values of the USA were held higher than the nation state itself or the people running it. And a lot of early heroes, like whether it is a vigilante in the Golden Age or even like a lone gunman in the Wild West type story, were sometimes people that were coming in to reset the order of things because the area was not being ran to the higher order principles that founded it.
Yeah, and yeah, you can really see that in a lot of, I think, older TV series too, and movies.
Well, I think you just look. Well, you got. I mean, Rick, Mel, you guys have been with me a few times when we've looked back at some of the Golden Age stories. We've seen some of that in some
Yeah,
of those
that too.
Golden Age stories. Right. A lot of times people will, like, I know you and Tim in particular, Rick, have had some criticisms because of how simplistic a lot of the stories have been. But overall, we see a lot of that happening even
Well,
even when we look over the Golden Age stuff.
I wouldn't say simplistic that I've had myself an issue with. I can't say for Tim, but just me, it's been some of the bigger plot holes.
Hmm.
Sometimes simplistic is better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, RJ and I were reading some very interesting stories the other night. So,
Yeah.
all
Sit
right. So,
down
anyway,
more with the article.
yeah. The interviewer goes on, as Avi says here. So, this is back to the interview. He feels like a very relevant villain right now. There's been a resurgence, particularly online, of people expressing these hardline attitudes. Were you surprised by how timely he has proven to be? And I guess this is Tom King responding. I think the thing that most surprises me is people saying, quote unquote, stop mocking me or associating themselves with the sovereign. I always want to say to people, quote, you're not the bad guy. This is not you. You are not the evil version. You can be the good guy here, unquote. I was half raised by my grandmother, a wonderful human being with very traditional values. She would be on Wonder Woman's side in this. Sovereign is a radical. He's as bad as Lex Luthor in the Joker. He's the bad guy. Don't associate yourself with him. Have confidence that your values are better than his. I'm not yelling at anyone with this villain. Just like if you're a realtor, you shouldn't be mad at Lex Luthor. Maybe you're a good realtor. You don't have to be Lex Luthor. All right. I have no idea why, where his mind was going on that one. Do you guys?
Yeah. I guess he's trying to say Lex Luthor is some sort of realtor. Never seen Lex Luthor as a realtor. Yeah, sure. In a couple movies, he's wanted to, buy up some realty, but reshape the West Coast or whatever, or create a new island or whatever, and all that. But I wouldn't
Listen.
say that make them a realtor.
When it comes to Superman 1, Lex Luthor was right. Sorry, Mike, we have to sink California. It's for the sake of the rest of the nation.
Actually,
but he wanted to do for a different reason, Metal.
You know something, Metal. You know something. I'm one of the quite a few Californians who probably agree with you. It's just that for some of us, like myself, who's on disability, it's not quite so easy to move out of California, if you get what I mean.
I know. It's just, it's a sacrifice I'm willing to make.
Yeah.
Oh,
you're willing to sacrifice Mike. I'm sure he feels really happy about that.
Yeah. Anyways, back to the article. So I guess this is
Abby. I think
this is Abby speaking again here. So, gee, that's pretty rich coming from somebody who tries to associate Wonder Woman with illegal immigrants for political purposes. Much like the mainstream media tried to lump Superman in with the same, exploiting other people's science fantasy creations for real-life agendas that don't work the same way science fiction and surrealism do. That's reprehensible. And then near the end, so we're back to the article now here, back to the interview. As you just hinted at, the Absolute Power event is coming up. What's it like for you as a writer on an ongoing series when these big line-wide events happen? And I guess this is Tom King responding. It can be awesome. One of my favorite issues I've ever written in my life, and the one that had a huge impact on my life, was I did a Green Lantern issue for the Dark Side War crossover that Jeff Johns wrote, and Doc Shaner and I, with Doc Shaner and I. It was just a single issue, and Jeff's like, quote, you have to do this and this and this, unquote. And yet, in that space, we were able to tell what I consider to be one of the best single issues. It's fun to be in that space because you can really run there. You can do what Alan Moore did when he was given Crisis and Swamp Thing. You can make beautiful gold out of the thing. Let's see. When I was on Batman, I got to be fairly isolated from all that. We had the Button crossover, but basically not much. When I started Wonder Woman, they were like, quote, Tom, do you want us to isolate you? Oh, boy. And I literally said to them, quote, no, I want this to be old school. I want this to be like when I was reading Avengers and Inferno happened and then Acts of Vengeance happened. I want to be like Walt Simonson and make something awesome out of it, unquote.
Okay, just on a point of contention, old school, unfortunately, technically I would think would be going back to the golden age when none of them were connected. So I think saying old school it's a little bad to say.
Yeah, I don't know about you guys. I don't know about
I think
you
that
guys.
would be middle school.
Yeah. I don't know about you guys, but I kind of think that maybe Tom King should be isolated somewhere, like maybe in a rubber room, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah,
What do you guys think about that?
unfortunately, that's not quite what they meant. They just meant
I
when you're
know,
writing
I know.
romance. Yeah.
I
No,
know.
no, he doesn't need to be isolated. He just needs to be taken off writing comics.
He just needed to be what?
Taken off writing comics. He's a
Hmm.
bad writer. As we said, I think at least
At
Metal
the
agreed
very
with me.
beginning, right?
Yeah.
Well, I'm not even going to say he needs to be taken off writing comics. I think he definitely needs to not be writing at DC or something. If he wants to write his own original imprint somewhere, right, that's fine. Probably nobody will buy it, but I mean, then you just let your writing stand on its own. I think anybody
What
who
were
wants to
those?
write comics should, but
What were those two comic presses that had like they won some Eisner Award for something like the Tea Dragon, and they both had like $14,000 per year in annual sales, and one was called like Omni Press, hilariously for the meaning of Omni, and one was called like Lions Press, and they both bought each other in Seattle, and then the staff started writing angry letters that they were laying off lesbians and black people during the merger. And like one of them was run by a pair of black brothers, and they were both boutique publishers that were run by the sons and daughters of rich parents. That strikes me as where Tom King belongs, is like writing the Tea Dragon for a boutique press of a spoiled rich kid with rich parents who has like zero accountability and zero like real life experience. That's just what I've always thought he belonged in.
yeah, I was wondering where you were going with that when you started, but by the time you finished, I completely agree.
Yeah. All right. Well, anyways, let's get back to the article here. Let's see. Anybody who's going to speak so lovingly about writing with a writer as awful as John's is is has no business telling us he wants to be like Simonson, a far better writer artist than any of them will ever be. And when he was younger. Another clue: what's wrong with King and the company he keeps? Hmm.
Okay, I'm not sure whether I get that, but
Well, maybe we're about. Maybe we'll see that answer in this last paragraph here, Rick. And didn't Wonder Woman rebel against her mother's wishes in the pre and or post crisis origins when the Themysciran Queen was against Wonder Woman becoming a fighter against evil forces? So it's not like it wasn't done before. All King cares about is concocting stealth propaganda demeaning to the USA. Um, Once again, Marie Javins, as successor to the equally awful Dan Didio, um, has done a terrible disservice to the classic creations in DC stables.
yeah. Well, and that last part, he sort of pointed out where what I pointed out earlier about her origins and rebelling, which you know, as I was trying to say, I'm not sure about the rebellion. I thought about that.
Well, yeah, basically, as I recall, I think it was more in the Silver Age when they were doing the Silver Age version of um, Wonder Woman's origin. Idea was that when Athena called for the tournament for an Amazon champion to be
Selected.
chosen to go out and represent Amazons in the world as the hero Wonder Woman. I think Hippolyta was against the idea of Diana participating in the tournament. She didn't want her
Yeah,
daughter included because, as we know, once Wonder Woman left the island,
she couldn't
you
come
know,
back,
she
or
would lose
wasn't
her
supposed to be it.
immortality. She would lose a lot of that stuff. She'd still, as Wonder Woman, she'd still have like a lot of that, but
Yeah. And actually, this wasn't too bad of an Avi article. He wasn't. He made some sense, I'd say, for the most part.
And we're at the hour and a half mark, so we might be able to get at least one more article in then.
Well, as
So
long as it's short and we don't comment on it too much.
I'd like to join in Rick's praise of Avi. This was one where he wasn't like just bringing in complete non sequiturs and absolute outright things that are just provably wrong, at least, or could be provably wrong. It's just, yeah, that it was a triumph for Avi, but that's a low bar. It's like a Tom King masterpiece. It's not necessarily something I really want on my nightstand, but nevertheless, yes, I'll acknowledge it's his best work.
Yeah, well,
I would
like
have to ask Mike, is Avi the one that I normally complain about when I complain about these articles?
I think so, because I think we have covered a lot of Avi, but I'm not sure because I don't remember the last time you do you remember what some of the nature of the complaints?
No, I just know that there's at least one writer who consistently I end up complaining about his stuff. And if it's the same writer, then I have to agree that it actually was an okay article.
It probably is Avi, because I think Avi is the one people seem to have the issue with in terms of how he articulates some of his points sometimes. But anyways, if you guys can talk amongst yourselves for a moment before we go on to this next article, because I do need to step away from the computer for a moment. I'll be right back. But if you guys can, just take charge for a moment while I'm gone, I'll be right back.
Yeah, I was just going to say, a lot of his articles in the past were good, or seemed to, around the time I was more certain that, or at least I think, when Mike read them in past, but the last year and a half, his articles have been getting.
Well, when he said Kafka was a minor unknown author, I mean, that's just, there's only so much things can be provable. Yeah, that was one of his claims, was that they shouldn't have referred to Kafka because Kafka was a minor unknown author from Czechoslovakia that, quote, no one cared about.
Everyone knows France.
Yeah, exactly. And I was like, no, it's a big claim to say there's a provable fact in the big wide world and not in a laboratory. But as far as there is such a thing as a fact, there's a fact that Franz Kafka is not an unknown, unimportant author. It's just he's a dummy.
So known that they literally themed and named a character off of him in the widely popular game Honkai Star Rail, made by Chinese people, mind you. So he's internationally known.
When we looked up articles on him, there was the top 10 movies influence.
Yeah.
Or I said Franz Kafka's works have been made or are themes in many movies. And then we Googled it and we came up with the top 10 movies based on Franz Kafka-esque themes. So that's
was the Fly 10. In there? Because I would definitely say The Fly is a Kafka-esque movie.
I'd say
the Naked
Yeah, I can see that one too.
Yeah, it was been a while since we read that article that said that, so I can't say I remember which movies were on the list. I'm not sure whether Al Corley would remember completely either. From a few months ago or more.
Yeah, widely influential author.
Now, I must say that I've never heard of him, but I haven't heard of a lot of authors too. So it's not like I'm a big,
Well, I'm sure you've heard the terms like a Kafka trap, or something is Kafka-esque being thrown around, even if you didn't know what it meant.
I might have. I can't say that I remember hearing it, but I might have. So, but still, I don't get big into, yeah, I've done some writing for my comics, but I haven't been big into, learning writing technique, shall we say? So. That could be a major reason why too, but probably anybody that's learning about writing as a career probably would easily have heard of it. So,
well, you should at least read the Metamorphosis, because that's probably the most staple work that everyone is, from an educational standpoint, required to read.
Right.
So, Metal, were you able to figure out if Avi was the one you were complaining about before?
No, but I was given some further complaints.
You were what?
I was given some further complaints about him anyway.
All right. Well, anyways, let's go ahead and get into this. Like we're at hour 34, so we should be fine on time wise. You know, getting to around 2, maybe just after 2
Yeah.
hours.
Somehow I get that legendary comic creator becomes characters in horror novel trilogy. Somehow I doubt this is going to be too controversial. We might not have
Right.
a lot of comments
Well,
on
I
it.
guess, but it also depends on who they describe as legendary comic creators too.
Yeah, but that's true
Because
too. But
obviously, if they're going to call, let's say, somebody like a Tom King, a legendary comic creator, they might have an issue. All right.
yeah, but
Well,
that'll
I
be a
guess
minor comment.
in a way you could say Tom King's a legendary comic creator, a legendarily bad comic creator, maybe. Right?
Legendary, I'd probably say no.
It was a joke,
Well,
Rick.
yeah, I know. Well, no, yes, popular, maybe even. Legendary, no.
Yeah. But anyways, let's get into this. Legendary comic creators become characters in horror novel trilogy. Article by Christina Wiggins, published May 18th, which was, of course, yesterday. So let's get into this then. Let's see. Draw You In, Volume 3, Behind the Mask. All right, so let's see what Miss Christina here has to say. Crystal Lake Entertainment have announced Walt and Louise Simonson will be characters in a trilogy of horror novels entitled Draw You In, written by Jasper Bark. The novels are set within the comics industry, where comics creator Linda Corrigan's editor has recently disappeared without a trace.
Oh, she did Doomsday? Or she had something to do with that issue? That'd be neat if she did. So that I could possibly consider her legendary for having a part in that.
All right, so the book description reads, quote, Linda and comics historian Richard Ford unearth a chilling link to the forgotten comic artist R.L. Carver. R.L. Carver, okay. Um, whose work might just hold the key to a series of mysterious disappearances. Unquote. Not only are the Simonsons characters in the novels, they wrote their own dialogue. Draw You In, Volume 1, collector's item, featuring Walt Simonson, will be released on June 7th, 2024.
2024.
Go ahead, Rick.
Oh, just you're having a hard time with the date, so I tried to read it off for you. We read it at the same time.
Yeah. Draw You In, Volume 2, Secret Origins, featuring Louise Simonson, will be released on June 21st, 2024. And Draw You In, Volume 3, Behind the Mask, will be released on July 5th, 2024. There, Draw You In right there. Draw You In, Volume 2, Secret Origins. And you're right, Rick. Look at that. That went real quick.
Yeah.
All right. So, which I kind of also had a feeling that was.
Yeah, and the good thing is,
I kind of had a feeling
a lot of
that was going to be a pretty quick article. So we're at hour 39 now. So I think there's one more article that might be a little bit more biting, as it were, but I think it will be a good one. And this one's not as much. Let me find it. This is the one I kind of mentioned. This one before we went on the air, and I'm just ignoring this because, according to Rick, this is more due. That was due more to the fact I'm using Microsoft, the Microsoft. Hello.
Edge.
Yeah.
or Chrome, whichever one that
Oh,
he's using.
oh, it's hey Tim. Huh.
Tim, you here?
When I saw Melvin, I realized. Hi. All right. Well, Tim, if you can hear me back there somewhere.
Tim saying, yeah, he's saying stuff in the private chat. He says hi, and then let me switch headphones.
If you're being held hostage, blink twice.
Well, we can't even see anything because he's got his avatar up.
Perfect.
We can't see his face. So, all right. So, I guess before we get into this article, though, I guess we'll wait for Tim to chime in here.
Yeah, well, he's switching to headphones or whatever, so that might take a couple minutes.
All right. Well, I guess then I should go ahead and just start the article.
Here we got him.
Check.
Oh,
It's in the
Can you hear me?
mail.
Okay, you can hear me. Smart ass.
Yeah.
I can't hear your blinks.
hey Tim, how you doing tonight?
I'm okay.
Have you caught any of what we've been talking about, or are you just getting in?
Just getting in.
Okay. So, all right. Well, we went over a couple of articles, comics related that, and I guess Elk is trying to tell.
One with a decent discussion, and one that was just small.
Yeah. We're talking a little bit about Tom King's latest run on Wonder Woman and some of the critique.
Oh.
So, but
Hello,
hey,
Metal.
Hello.
How you doing? I already said hi to Rick earlier this morning, so hello again,
Yeah.
Rick.
Yeah, hello.
well, since you're here, Tim, before we get into the article, would you like to do any introductions? Maybe share any links? Tell everybody what you're doing these days.
I don't know. Am I possibly having Melvin 1 and 2 special editions sold on Walmart, Amazon or Barnes and Noble, and possibly Melvin 0 special edition will be out soon, whenever.
All right. Well, as always, you're always welcome to share a link if you'd like to kind of let so everybody can go find your stuff if you'd like.
I'm sure you caught the joke there.
I don't think I did, but maybe the others did.
No,
I said, oh, I don't know. Maybe I have this and this and this, and I just listed all the things I'm promoting.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You were doing it in a more sarcastic tone, basically. Okay.
No, I'm not.
Yeah. Well, for a joke, it wasn't that funny.
All right. So, anyways.
Go ahead.
All right. So, why don't we go ahead and get into this article then? Now, this one's a little bit more anime, and I'm sure Metal might have a little bit more to say about this than any of us. Him and me, anyways. He and I. So, Kill la Kill creator defends fan service in anime. Quote, if we make the work completely sterile, people's immunity will be weakened and they will all die. Unquote. Actually, I think Tim might have a few things to say about this too, considering how he feels about censorship.
Service in anime, if we make the work completely sterile. Well, yeah, he's saying if we make it just completely unrelatable and bland and boring and safe, then I think we got to go into an era where we're blatantly trying to offend these people.
Well, I mean, Kill la Kill specifically is probably one of the most over-the-top depictions of fan service because it's used comedically, right? It's not just like there to be sexy, though it is there to be sexy. It's also poking fun at things that are done well with fan service, things that are not done well with fan service. And by the end of the series, it turns out that the enemy of man is clothes. If you want to understand like the satirical nature of how they use fan service in that series. And everybody's running around naked trying to kill these like alien clothes.
I do kind of remember because I did watch that when it was on Toonami, so I do kind of a few years ago.
Yeah.
I do kind of remember that. Yeah.
Well, I still use that idea that, like, we should make material and stuff that threatens the establishment, such as Marvel and DC and such, and various other. So
you also have to think too, right? That Kill la Kill comes from the same studio that gives you wonderful works like Tengen Toppa Gurren Lagann, just so you know, like the type of humor that
I don't, because I've never heard of that.
You've never heard of Gurren Lagann? Oh my
No.
god!
What the hell is it? Enlighten me.
It is the best stupid mech show that you will ever watch. Highly recommended.
Really?
And it's all everything's basically an erection joke in a way, but it's also just great. It's about a boy whose drill will pierce the heavens, and it is a mech combination show where the drills literally will take a smaller mech and it will drill into a bigger mech and combine with it, and it just keeps getting bigger and bigger until like they're fighting on top of the plane of a galaxy against each other. It is a very just really ridiculous show, and if you've never seen it, you need to watch Tengen Toppa Gurren Lagann.
Right.
Where do you find it, Metal?
Various places. I think they probably have it on Crunchyroll if you're one of those weird squares that have to go by the book. But if you need a link, you could DM me. I can get it to you.
Yeah.
Maybe I might take that link.
Yeah, I'm sure I know a few links too, but anyways,
they make a lot of really good stuff. They also made the adaptation for Fooly Cooly.
Yes, I remember how odd and interesting that one was.
Yeah. Well, that one was more of an OVA, as I recall.
And I think they also
it was kind of an interesting one. It was good, surreal, odd one, odd one.
Because that's Gainax is the one who does it. I think Gainax and Trigger work together on Panty and Stocking, though that's primarily a Trigger project. But Gainax has worked on a lot of different stuff over the years.
Well, Gainax also, I believe, worked on Neon Genesis Evangelion. Too.
Yeah, they did.
That one's a head warper.
Yeah, they have a lot of serious stuff, but also at the same time, like Gurren Lagann takes direct shots at Evangelion, as it deserves.
So what was your take on Fooly Cooly?
I love it.
It's right.
It's
just so weird that it's like I can't stop watching this.
I rewatched it recently this year.
Oh yeah.
Well,
it has a pretty good.
The past few years, they've been coming out with sequels to it too.
I've never seen the sequels. I've heard they're not as good. I want to watch them. They're probably just as good as an adaptation, since Fooly Cooly is one of the few things they make that has the source material. But it was very CG heavy, like 3D models and stuff when I looked at the previews, and it kind of turned me off. I liked the primarily mixed genre 2D animation that they did in the original Fooly Cooly, just because like the actual comic has all kinds of different art styles in it, so it's like, yeah, we're going to use this as just a portfolio test for animation, more or less. What did you think of the What'd you think of the gratuitous, what's the name for the violence in High School of the Dead? I rewatched High School of the Dead recently too. Well, the only thing that disappoints me about that is that the creator of High School of the Dead passed away, so there will never be more High School of the Dead.
I just thought
there's a lot of anime like High School, kind of I think over the past, I don't know if it's been like 10 years or so, there's been a number of like zombie apocalypse type animes that have been out there. Of course, High School of the Dead is one. School Live is another.
The thing about High School of the Dead, though, despite the fan service, even though I'm not going to say I like the fan service, but despite that, it's actually one of the best depictions of how like a zombie apocalypse or whatever would probably actually happen in the way they treat the zombies and how like certain senses go before others because that part of the body would decay before the other. And it's actually a really, really good zombie story that a lot of people won't give it the time of day because fan service attracts some people, but it also just completely turns off another group of people.
One that's currently running on Toonami right now, and I don't know if you heard of this one, Metal. Zone 100 Bucket List of the Dead.
I've heard of it. It's been on my list of things to watch. I just have not gotten around to it.
It's pretty interesting.
Mostly.
It's like, okay, so you got the main character there. It just seems to almost like act totally oblivious to what's going on around him. He's all stressed out. He's one of these people who like just get driven to the point of practically going insane because work, and then the zombie apocalypse happens. All of a sudden, he just it's like, oh boy.
Well, trust me, there's a set list of us who would thrive better in a zombie apocalypse situation than in an actual like salary man's life. But I heard about that one.
I'd be dead. I'd be dead in a zombie apocalypse, no question.
At least you're honest with yourself, right? But I heard about it because Marsupial had watched the live action adaptation of it, and like the live action sounds good, but I think I'd rather just watch like the animation or read the source material first before watching the live action, and I just have not gotten around to it since then.
Considering that we're getting into a pretty good conversation here, I think I'm going to save this article for tomorrow night for you and me, Rick. We'll start with this one tomorrow night because we're coming up. Yeah. We're already at an hour 51, and it sounds like we got a pretty good conversation going about like anime, like zombie animes and stuff like that. So
yeah, Kill la Kill is also technically not just a over-the-top parody of how fan service is used. It's also technically a Magical Girl series, which I find is hilarious. And her familiar is her actual outfit because she uses clothes to fight clothes. For the first half, you don't even realize that the clothes are the actual bad guys.
I'm trying to think of this one series I saw one time, and there's a character, she always dies in every single episode.
Is it Princess Kenny from South Park?
No, but that's also a hilarious bit.
Yeah.
It'll come to me like way later. I know it.
But yeah, like Kill la Kill is so crazy because it starts off as like also a parody of like school rumble shows where it's like, oh well, she's going to this like elite private academy or whatever, and all of these things are always run in like a tournament structure, right? So it's making fun of it's like combining everything. It's throwing everything at the wall there. There's like a tournament arc, there's the school rumble arc, and then after they finally beat like the big four, which is another trope that you usually have in these type of things, you find out, oh, well actually, yes, the dean of the school was the bad guy, and she's actually like an alien or part alien or whatever, and she's working with the clothes to take over mankind and make them like Matrix style batteries for the clothes mechs, and this one rebel clothes or whatever have to work against them and destroy these alien clothes so mankind can live freely. And outfits end up being normal by the end. Like they kill the hive mind or whatever that make the clothes evil, and they go back to just normal society. But it is a trip. It is like a really fun acid trip to go through if you just want to have like a stupid time with the show. A lot of their series are like that.
You were talking about a trope. Is that like a trope in a like all those tournament style stories where they're always going into some kind of tournament or something?
Tournament arcs are something that honestly started becoming a big like trope in manga and anime. Kind of because of Toriyama. It's not like he was the first one to ever do a tournament, but he's the first one to really start turning his chapters into arcs, and a lot of people after him started doing that, like after Dragon Ball Yu
and
Yu Hakusho had like its big arcs for tournaments and stuff like that.
Metal. Let me ask something. For those in here who may not know who Toriyama is, would you?
He's the creator of Dragon Ball Z.
The late creator of Dragon Ball, rest in peace,
Right.
very recently.
Right.
But yeah, he created Dragon
I mean,
Ball.
I
He
think
created
most of it
Dr.
in the
Slump.
I think maybe I don't know if Elk knew who we were talking about, but I think the rest of us knew who it was.
Akira Toriyama.
I knew Toriyama. That is probably the only creator I know of in anime. But yes, I knew, him I knew.
So I guess we got that him he knew.
Mm-hmm.
Metal. It's also kind of funny how you mentioned the term "school rumble," because aside from that being, I guess a trope or an anime trope or what have you, there actually is an anime called School Rumble.
I'm familiar. It's the name of that one where people have named the trope. It's been around longer than that, but it didn't have a name until after School Rumble.
Yeah, it kind of revolves around this one girl who she likes one guy, but another guy likes her. So it's like it's kind of a love triangle.
Yeah.
So
those are like the major
they
tropes.
Just beat each other up. Is that what happens?
No, not exactly.
No.
The girl is kind of oblivious to a lot of things, to the point to where she's kind of protected by her 3 girlfriends. Her 3 girlfriends, not girlfriends like dating or anything, but her friends who are girls. You kind of have to protect her because she's just that dense. The boy she likes is kind of like, well, most of the girls in school like him because he's like the perfect guy kind of trope. The guy who likes her is kind of a thug and kind of, he's smart, but he's not like super smart, but he's smarter than she is, but he's still kind of a bit of a ruffian.
Yeah, he kind of plays on that jerk with the heart of gold trope.
Yeah.
He comes off rough, but he actually kind of
that might be used for him might be a himbo. I don't know if that would be the
it could be a stretch, but I wouldn't disagree with it either.
So let's see.
But
we had quite an interesting anime talk tonight. Metal, would you like to tell everybody, or shall I? The girl, the protagonist from Kill la Kill. Do you remember what her weapon of choice was?
Oh well, because it's clothing based, her weapon of choice is actually it's kind of supposed to be like a bastard sword, bustard sword type thing, but it's actually scissors.
Yeah, it's like a sentient pair of scissors, right?
Well, the actual weapon technically is her clothes, right? So the thing that's sentient is her sailor fuku that's alive, but she gets her actual weapon in this outfit is a pair of scissors, right? Like as a blade. She uses it like a sword blade. She can even dual wield them. But the eye of the clothes is still there on like one of her breasts, like over the clothes, and it's a living sentient sailor fuku.
And if I remember correctly, I think it was in the English dub, which the English dub I believe was done by Bang Zoom. The English dub voice of the protagonist is done by Erica Mendez, I believe.
I'm not sure because I've only ever seen the Japanese. I think back when I originally watched it, it wasn't dubbed yet.
Huh.
And
but
Metal,
I'm sure they did a good job.
Metal Elk was wanting you to send him the link for that series that you were talking about earlier.
Yeah, here, the Gurren Lagann one. Yeah, let me get that.
Preferably with a dub because reading.
It's actually got a really good dub. That's how I rewatched it recently. Because as I told Mike before,
Oh.
which the number's only gone up since then. I think when I first came back online, I told you I had watched like 1,500 episodes of anime this year. Mostly it's stuff that I'd already watched before. I think since then I've gotten over 1,700 just because I've been having to keep up with stuff for my show. I have no idea how many unique episodes I'm going to end up watching by the end of the year at the rate that I'm going.
Well, maybe after
Yeah,
we're off the air tonight, I'll tell you about some of my watching too.
Yeah, and do you have
Yes,
elk?
Rick, I know we're at the 2 hour mark already.
No,
and-
no, no, I wasn't talking about that. Metal, do you have Elk's email?
Oh, I was actually just going to drop it in the private chat back here for everybody so I don't have to send it to everyone.
Okay,
I
that's
just
good.
need to get it real quick.
Well, I don't really need.
I think I do have his
myself.
email though because I sent him an email before.
Okay, and he just put his email in the private chat as well. So, but I wasn't sure whether you had seen his
No.
request in the private chat, so I just figured I'd let you know.
Yeah, we got the original, and we also have the parallel works. If anybody's likes the original enough that they want to watch the other stuff, all in dub.
I'm still trying to remember the name of that series. I can almost summarize what it kind of is, but
So many lines from that I liked it. Like so the lines are intentionally stupid, especially even in the dub. So like I'll walk up to my brother and I'll just be like, "Don't call me Kamina, call me bro." Which he calls him bro throughout the entire series. The word that they use in Japanese is ainiki, which kind of means older brother in an informal sense. It's something that you might call similar like senpai, but somebody you have like a casual relationship with in school, like an older male. You might call him aniki, right? There's even a Gachimuchi wrestler who went by aniki, which literally just meant bro.
Bro.
So like Kamina's like, just call me aniki. And he does throughout the whole series, and in the English one, they translate it to bro, which totally fits their relationship to translate it that way. I love it.
And Garen Lagann, the bigger guy. I don't know if he was the protagonist or secondary protagonist, but the bigger guy I know in the English dub was, I believe, voiced by Kyle A. Bear.
Yes, you're talking about Kamina, who you think is the main protagonist at first, but Simone is actually the main protagonist, and he even kind of grows up into being like Kamina.
Yeah.
Everybody, even if they haven't seen Gurren Lagann, they have probably at least seen Kamina or his glasses. Because like even like any convention, people are wearing like the big sharp red glasses and stuff, and it's kind of iconic at this point. Or they've probably seen Yoko Littner. Everybody should be familiar with at least the visual of Yoko Littner, even if they haven't seen the show.
So Tim, you said you're trying to think. So what is it? What is it you're trying to figure out again?
You're trying to remember the name of a show.
Yeah, I know he's trying to figure out the name of a show, and it had something to do with a girl dying at the end, or every episode.
Maybe Melvin walked away from the computer.
Yeah, because I think I see like the. Well, I've noticed Elk also has his mute button off.
Well, it's probably so he
here.
doesn't hear like the phone
typing.
ringing and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah, sorry, I had it muted. Okay, so it's like an evil organization. There's these two they're like they serve this evil person. I know this is not a very good description. but they try to take over the world and they always fail, and one of them always died in every single episode somehow.
So
I
not thinking
think
in the brain.
you know what it sounds like to me, and Meadow, maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but
Yeah.
it sounds a little bit like maybe Excel Saga, maybe.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I
I
just
could see that being Excel Saga. See, my mind was framed in a different way because I thought maybe like there was an evil organization and like one of the protagonists was dying, because that's also similar to like what happens in Steins Gate, where he has to keep
Right.
jumping world lines because his there's just a bad end every single time, no matter what.
I thought that was a
Until-
pretty good anime. It was
But Excel Saga is pretty good. Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I've seen Steins Gate and its
Yeah.
two other I think Steins Gate is part of that package. I think Chaos Head's another one, which was pretty good as well. And I think there was a
Yeah, Steins Gate was an interesting adaptation.
So I think it's Chaos Head, Robotic Nun, and Steins Gate. Those are the three that kind of
Because Steins Gate was originally a visual novel, so that obviously had multiple endings. And anytime that you're adapting a visual novel, you kind of have to pick a route, right? You can't do everything. But the cool thing about Steins Gate, since they're doing like this world line hopping, right, jumping between like a multiverse of timelines, they could peek into other routes for fun episodes here and there before getting into the serious stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I remember from Chaos Head in particular that I think the ending theme was actually pretty fun. So yeah, so we're just past the 2-hour mark, so unless there's anything else you guys wanted to bring up, I think it might be a good time to start winding things down a bit. What do you guys think?
Sounds good.
All right, so what we'll do is we'll do the This Weekend in Each History segment. Then we'll wrap things up. We'll go in counterclockwise order. We'll give everybody a chance to close out, and then of course I'll close everything out at the very end. All right?
Sounds awesome, Possum.
All right, so let me just review some things here. 1954. 2009. All right. So with that, today being Sunday, May 19th, 2009, why don't we go ahead and take a look back at this weekend in Nietzsche history. History! So first off, we're going to head back to yesterday, and we're going to head back 15 years ago yesterday, as on yesterday's date, 15 years ago. First off, WWE held its Monday Night Raw event from Freedom Hall in Louisville, Kentucky. It was the day after the Judgment Day pay-per-view. The main event saw Batista and John Cena triumph over the Legacy in a 3-on-2 handicap match. Legacy comprised of Randy Orton, Cody Rhodes, and Ted DiBiase Jr. Montel Vontavious Porter retained the United States Championship over Matt Hardy on there. And the show opened up with a number one contenders battle royal for the WWE Divas Championship, in which Kelly outlasted Beth Phoenix, the Bella Twins, Jillian Hall, Mickie James, and Rosa Mendez. So on yesterday's date, 15 years ago, WWE held its Monday Night Raw event from Freedom Hall in Louisville the day after the Judgment Day pay-per-view. And 2009 was just so nice. Of course, we're going to hit it twice. Yeah, okay.
I disagree. That was one of the worst years of my life, but continue.
Well, I just say that more as a joke.
I don't even remember 2009. You know,
I wish I didn't remember 2009.
What happened in 2009 that sucked so much?
Oh, a lot of that is too personal to talk about.
Oh, never
Probably
mind.
Not even
Well,
But also, it was
well,
part of my senior year of high school.
Metal,
Okay, say no more.
you're not the only one who some people might consider not had a good time in 2009, as it were, depending on how you feel about this next bit of history. So on yesterday's date, 15 years ago, Wayne Allwine passed away at the age of 62. Wayne Allwine was the third official voice of Mickey Mouse, following Walt Disney and Jimmy McDonald. Um, he was a voice actor, sound editor, and Foley artist, best remembered as the third official voice of Mickey Mouse in English, following Walt Disney and Jimmy McDonald. He was the voice of Mickey from 1977 to 2009. So on yesterday's date, 15 years ago, Wayne Allwine, the third official voice of Mickey Mouse, passed away at the age of 62. So,
Oh wow, that was
Okay.
Yeah,
Cool.
he's actually when you hear the specific tenor and tone of Mickey Mouse and the cadence in which he talks, it's probably usually his voice you're thinking of, since he did it for like 3 decades straight.
well, parts of actually, I think it's more like parts of 4, because 77 to 2009,
Mm-hmm.
did it all the way up till he passed.
If it makes you feel any better, Metal, at least you're not P Diddy. That guy's having a sucky year.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So anyway, now moving on, of course, to today's date. As first off, we're going to head back 70 years ago today. As on this date, 70 years ago today, the 20th and final issue of Conga Jungle King from Fiction House went on sale on this date back in 1954. So back in 1954, the 20th and final issue of Conga Jungle King from Fiction House went on sale on this date back in 1954. It sold for 10 cents and was 32 pages.
I guess we'll be reading that in about 20 years.
Where was I in 1954? Wait a minute.
Not alive.
I wasn't around in 1954.
I don't think none of us were around in 1954.
No.
My
Our
dad wasn't even
parents
around.
probably were. I think most of our parents probably were.
No. My dad was
Well,
born
no.
in 64.
My dad was like
What?
3 in 1954.
My mom was 2. My dad would have been about 6.
My dad would have been about 8. So, all right. So, anyways, and one more time, 2000. Well, for most of us, 2009 was just so nice twice that we're gonna hit it thrice.
But on a separate day.
Yeah. Let's see.
2009 had it coming.
In March 9th, as soon as I can do this out here. All right. That's it right there.
2009 is just not so nice. We're hitting it 3 times.
Yeah. Or thrice. All right. So on this day in 2009, the David Productions OVA Stray Dogs Howling in the Dark was released on this date back in 2009. It was 4 episodes, I think 16 minutes each. It was based on the manga series Dogs, Bullets, and Dogs, Bullets, and Carnage. So on this date, back 15 years ago today, David Productions OVA Dogs, Stray Bullets, Howling in the Dark was released on this date back in back in 2009.
You'll have to forgive me, but what's the difference between a regular cartoon / anime and an OVA?
Well, and again, Metal could probably correct me on this if I have this.
But these are all kind of different categories of things in general, right? I could just clarify real quick. Cartoon is a specific type of animation, which you can have cartoons in Japan, right? Anime is just the Japanese word for animation. So we also use that for any animation that comes out of Japan. Some of those could be
Right.
cartoons. Some of them could be more realistic, just like how we have more realistic stuff here that you wouldn't call all animation cartoons. And an OVA doesn't even necessarily refer to anime, though that's where we first started using the term. It just means original video animation, which is what we use for things that basically, it's like when Disney made sequels that went direct to home video, right? So instead of like it airing on TV, sometimes a season or maybe even just a special would just go straight to VHS. They tried to use another term, which was OVD, original video disc, later on after things went to DVD. It never really caught on, so people still kind of just use the term OVA for things that do not air in the original serial run on TV. Or actually now it doesn't even make sense if something airs originally on Netflix to use OVA for anything, right? Like it's got to have
Right.
its own name. But that's
Well,
back on how practices were back then.
You have
Okay.
OVAs and ONAs.
It's
Yeah,
just another way of saying
Yeah.
straight to video.
Pretty much. It is just a way of saying straight to video.
Yeah.
More or less.
Okay, thanks for
Well-
clearing that up.
Well, this okay. I was under the impression what you were asking was more what's the difference between like anime television series and OVAs. My understanding of that is that most anime series tend to be adaptations of the manga, whereas OVAs are original material, where
Not
they
necessarily.
take the material from the manga and then make something more original out of it, as opposed to
Now, there's sometimes a habit of that in certain series, but it is come down to it's like it was direct to video. I can even take an older example, rewatching through Ranma, where a lot of these older ones, especially trying to make them more fit for syndication, where like they're episodic and taking out some of the arcs. There's a lot of just original episodes crammed in the middle of Ranma that have nothing to do with the source material. It's just in there. We might call it filler now, but I don't even think it's appropriate to call it filler in Ranma, because at a certain point they just stopped caring about the arcs, right? But at the same time, there's OVAs that were being released that were actually based on the source material in around seasons like 3 through 7, or 4 through 7, the later half of it. So it's kind of just whatever general practices are, but the word does just mean that it didn't air on TV or went to theaters first. It was just direct to video.
Okay. And ONA would be original net animation, which just simply meant it went straight to the net as opposed to TV
Yeah,
or any of the
which
other.
usually they were shorts back then, because they've been doing this for a long time. Like Haruhi had an entire web series with the chibis and stuff like that. But now it's like we're using that for Netflix and stuff just because we don't have a new name. Yeah.
Yeah. So Tim, there you go. There's your education for the night.
Well, that's something I've always wanted to know. I just never got around to asking the question.
Well, look who we
Good night,
have right
Spoon.
here.
Hey, good night, Spoon.
Hey, good night, friend. Yeah, I was just gonna say, and he says,
Hey, good night, buffoon.
Hello.
Spoon. Sorry.
We're also going to be saying goodnight to him very soon because we're coming right up to the end.
Right.
and good night, Spoon
All
says, Tom.
So with that, so what we'll do, we'll go in reverse order now. We'll go counterclockwise. We'll do the we will go ahead and
We'll do
do
Tommy
the outros.
first.
Well, yeah, we'll do the outros and then we'll close things out. So start with Tim. We'll go counterclockwise. Tim, Elk, Metal, Rick, and as always, guys, you know, I think you guys know what the outro is. Just promote anything you want, share any links if you have them. You got the shtick, right?
Yes, Melvin 1 and 2 special editions on Walmart, Barnes and Noble, and Amazon websites. And coming soon, Melvin 0 special edition. So keep your peepers open for it.
All right. Elk?
I am the possessor and the proud. I'm the proud possessor of Melvin, the even more special secret edition, no longer available to the nicer members of mankind, featuring the corrupted artistic freaks that Melvin has been forced to work with in the past. But that, and I am the owner of other comic books from those around this table, and I'm just pleased to have a chance to talk about comics and creating works of fiction with some people who are lucky enough to have done so, whereas I have not. So, again, thank you for your company tonight.
All right. Metal, you're up.
Yeah, I was initially kind of confused when you said we'll be starting with Tommy. Because like what? No, I'm right here in the middle. I'm not on either end. What are you talking
No,
about?
oh, I'm sorry. I meant
No,
Tim.
Rick said that
Yeah.
because of the Tom joke. I'm like, oh, they're talking about Tim. Yes, okay.
Yeah, because
No,
that
I would.
started with me. That
It's a
started
running
with me.
joke, really.
Yeah, because it started
Metal,
with
you
me.
know I know better than to do that on air.
Oh, I don't even care if people call me that or not. Because I'm public with my name. It's just it initially confused me. Like, what? There's no other Tommy here, as far as I'm aware.
Yeah,
I didn't even realize I
actually-
did it.
Well, I mean,
No, you didn't. It was Rick.
I called
I
Goodnight.
did it, and
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
started with me accidentally calling Tim Tom one night on my show. So now Goodnight Spoon calls Tim Tom.
Yeah. Which,
Yeah.
Good Night Spoon, I guess, actually brings up something that I was going to share. Anyway, hi, I'm the Metal. My real name is Tommy, actually. Hello. Don't be confused by my pen name, Malcolm, but that's only because there's a lot of people with my exact name in the publishing industry, so
Right.
a pen name is kind of necessary. But I run a show, or a channel called the Vomitorium Live, and tomorrow's show is Super Serial Showtime, where one of the things we'll be talking about, as he brings up, is the amazing digital circus, as well as keeping up with some of the other things, like we've been watching Dungeon Meshi, or I guess Netflix calls it Delicious in Dungeon. But yeah, you can go find it there. Our Monday shows at 8 p.m. Central are mostly catered to things that are serial. So we'll talk about movies, mostly ones within series because that's what makes it serial. TV shows, especially anime. Sometimes comics, novels, just anything in that line, we'll bring it up. And then on Thursdays, we will talk about the interactive stuff like video games and tabletop and toys and stuff like that. There's a show for whatever your preference is. You don't have to watch both of them. And what I was going to share, since we brought up a lot of things about like manga and comics and stuff like that, if people want to own one of my comics, the one I would recommend today is the print version of. No, sorry, I almost typed the whole same thing again. Ignore that. It didn't copy. This one. Realms and Relics #1, which is a 48-page kind of manga-esque comic that I made. I would actually call it a manga because it was made for the 100th Tezuka manga creation contest. But yeah, you do that. It's fun. It's a little kind of sci-fi myth mixed romp across the different realms. It's a fetch quest too, so yeah, it's pretty straightforward and it's wacky. That's all I wanted to share.
All right. Rick?
Okay, so I'm putting my link to my channel. Yeah, anybody wants to go over to my channel, subscribe to me, watch all my content, to build up my watch hours. I would very much appreciate it as I'm, trying to build that up so I can get monetized. So yeah, that's about all I got. Hopefully soon I'm gonna be having my book or some of my books on Amazon, or a collection of my books on Amazon, Walmart, and Barnes and Noble. Good Night Spoon says, I have a counterpoint to Rick's argument that everyone is corrupt and corruptible from a few weeks ago. I don't remember making that point. Not everyone, but a lot of people can be. I think.
Anyways, and of course, guys, don't forget that Rick, of course, has his chill stream on Tuesday nights. Go there
Yeah.
and hang out with him as well.
And then, of course, I'm going to be on here tomorrow night with you talking.
Yeah,
Go over an article that we.
I'll be back on here probably tomorrow and Wednesday night, and then I also, to help me out do some news articles then. So coming up this week, of course, we'll be back here tomorrow night with more niche news. Rick will be joining me as my co-host. I don't have a co-host for Tuesday or Thursday right now, but hopefully we'll find one soon. To kind of go over stuff on there. Also, this Friday, I'll have Apex from Apex Comics on with me, as we, of course, as we do every Friday. We go back to the Golden Age and look back through stories from right now. Of course, we're working our way through February books that went on sale in February 1940. This week we'll be looking at Prize Comics, Prize Comics number 2, Volume 1, Issue 2. And then, of course, I'll have Rick on next Friday, the 31st, when we'll be going over quality. So some stuff to look forward to over the next couple weeks. So with that, I hope everybody had fun tonight. I hope the guests and everybody enjoyed themselves, and we had some pretty good hearty discussions tonight on some things of interest. So I hope everybody hope to see everybody back here tomorrow.
Later.
Bye.
Bye.